All I've said is that this phone depends upon something else in order to exist. That is my point. So my premise here, guys, and I want you to lose this premise, is that anything with limited variables depends...
I don't understand that bit.
Okay. Limited variables means that it's not unlimited in its composition. Let me give you an easy example, okay?
As in, there is a finite number of atoms that
Finite number of what? No, not atoms. I'm just saying finite number of whatever it may be.
or whatever makes up the mass
whatever
of the
makes
world,
up this phone, silicone or whatever it may be, it's finite, right? It's not infinite in its nature, is it? Like, for example, me, I'm composed of blood and tissue and water and all these things, right? But there's a finite number of those variables inside of my physical, biological frame. What I'm saying is that anything with such a description, which is finite in its composition, depends upon something else in order to exist. That's all I'm saying.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So is God, does God have infinite variables?
We're not talking about God. God is out of the discussion at the moment.
Les gars, c'est pas le sujet, les gars. C'est pas le sujet, d'accord?
We think of a thing,
And God wouldn't be fine because
we can talk about God.
okay, if you want to, okay, God, we would say, but what we would say, just to answer that kind of question, is God is not finite. Simple. The definition of God is that He is infinite in His mercy, His knowledge, etc. So He would be not in the category of things that we've just described.
I come back to that. Like that tree, is that God? Obviously not. The tree isn't God, so God can't be infinite because He would include the tree. If there's something that isn't God, surely it's finite, would be my...
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. Something which isn't God is finite. That's correct.
But God isn't the tree.
That's right.
So He's finite.
He is finite.
No, why would that mean? No, why is that the case?
Well,
If
He's
God isn't
not
the tree, so the tree is finite. So if He wasn't the tree, why would that make Him himself finite?
Well, because therefore the
Because
God
he's
is everything
something that-
apart from the tree.
We didn't say He's
Therefore,
everything.
Well, fine, but He's...
Oh yes, actually.
He's what? Oh, okay. Are you saying that He's unlimited in that He's occupying every crevice of creation?
No, that's what I'm suggesting you're almost saying. If
No,
He is
we don't believe
unlimited,
that.
it
We don't believe
constitutes
that.
everything.
That's
think
not our
there's some-
conception of theology, right?
Yeah, there's some. I don't really understand this variable thing, but it just seems to be words. This
Okay,
variable
everything is
thing.
words. If I said to you, listen, every human being is mortal, is that a controversial statement, guys? Really? No. If I said Socrates is a human being, would you have a problem with that? Would you honestly have a problem with that? If I said every human being is mortal, is there a problem?
No.
Is there no problem? Socrates is a human being.
Yes.
He is.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Well, He was.
He was okay. Well, he was a human being. Yeah.
I mean, if we're being like, yeah.
Right. Okay.
If we're being specific, we don't know that for sure.
Therefore, Socrates was mortal. Okay. See how you were able to simply follow the logic in that. There was no controversy. I could have said, listen, hold on. Premise number 2, Socrates, we don't know if he existed or not. I could say that. We only know that Socrates existed through Plato, actually. He hasn't written any of his own books. How do we know he existed? We can't see his tomb. But you just easily went from premise 1 to premise 2 to premise 3.
I think so. Going back to the last sort of step we were at, you said, I think, as far as I'm aware, I agree that anything that has limited variables
Is dependent.
is dependent on something.
So the universe has limited variables. Is that accepted?
That's where I stop.
Okay, is the universe is the universe unlimited in its variables? The amount of stars that compose the universe, the amount of black holes that are in the universe, the amount of helium that's in the universe, is that limited or unlimited?
It's unlimited in its. It
not unlimited.
could be unlimited in its time scope, though.
No, it's not.
That's where we disagree.
I'm just saying that
that's
it's-
where we can't ever know.
First and foremost, we're not talking about time. We're talking about variables, which are independent from time. Whether it's empty, okay, that's good. Whether it's empty or not empty, okay, because if they're moving into something, this is actually indicative of the fact that they must be finite by their nature. If the universe is expanding, do you accept the universe is expanding?
Yes.
If you accept that the universe is expanding, must accept that the universe is finite and not infinite. Because it cannot, something which is infinite cannot increase in number and size.
Okay, but
Do you understand this point?
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say.
let's go back to the phone example.
Yes.
So we agreed that this has been, it's a limited variable and that it is caused by something. If this has always existed for eternity.
Yeah, but that if, for me, is a non-relevant if. It's like saying if, you know, there's a multiverse, and therefore there's been this conversation has taken place before, sometime in the future. For me, that if is unsubstantiated.
Why?
I can say
Why?
there's an unlimited amount of ifs that I can presuppose to any given situation. We shouldn't use it to block logical pathways from taking place.
It's not blocking. It's not blocking.
Yeah.
We're just using. I'm using the phone. I'm not saying the phone's actually existed forever.
Right.
I'm just saying, imagine using it as a metaphorical example.
Okay. Hypothetical.
Imagine the phone has existed for eternity.
Yes.
Although it is limited in its variables.
My contention is exactly this.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's not possible for something with limited variables to forever exist.
Well, that's where.
And without being dependent. In order for that, my contention to be disproved, you'd have to give me a live example.
I don't have to.
Yes, you do. That's how science works, in fact. Science works in falsification terms. That's not the way science works. Science works is, okay, you've got hypothesis, experimentation, and then then you put it into peer-reviewed journals, right? Then it's the job of other scientists to falsify that whatever it is that you put.
Some things you can't
So in other,
disprove. Just as we agree, we can't disprove the existence of a God. Therefore, I am not.
No.
A
Now you're
100%
conflating the
atheist.
physical and the metaphysical. Here, the physical is where, because science has naturalistic presuppositions. It has a methodological naturalism as its base. In other words, you cannot put under a microscope things which are metaphysical. You can only put under a microscope that which is physical. Now, you've made a statement about physical entities, not metaphysical entities. You talked about the phone, which is actually a physical entity. So I'm saying that my contention today is that we have not yet found in the history of the world an example of something which is limited in its variables, yet independent. Even if you say that the universe has always been there, you still have to recognize that the universe is composed of a limited amount of variables. Yeah, the contingency.
I agree with you. I agree that I believe that the universe is contained of limited variables. I think
that sentence, I cannot prove or disprove it, is applicable to almost everything. Is applicable to almost everything. Yeah. And you can use that sentence to get away from believing in anything. Now, what I'm saying to you today is that you can continue saying this to yourself, and I believe it's self-delusion, by the way. If you say, I can't prove or disprove, therefore I'm not going to believe, I believe that's a form of self-delusion. I'm saying that in the physical world, anything that you see which has limited amount of variables is dependent upon something else. I have a billion examples of that. Any example you want to give around us is an example of that. Anything around, in fact, is an example of that. You're saying, well, we can't prove or disprove. The same induction that you use to prove your own existence, or the same induction that you use to prove almost anything that you believe in, you've rejected here. But why?
Okay, so
do you see what I mean?
I could give you a billion examples of plants that are green.
Yes.
Every plant, as far as I'm aware, has an element of green.
That's a false dichotomy here.
But you're saying that if you went.
But I can get you a blue plant. I'm saying to you that everything around us in this universe, which has limited variables, including the universe itself, which has limited variables, is contingent on something else for its existence. It's dependent upon something else.
We disagree with that.
So if you have one example that disproves this thesis, you've done exactly what someone would have done if they found one black swan. If you haven't found the black swan, you cannot say that black swans exist. I believe that, for example, simple induction, which you would accept in almost any other context, when it comes to the discussion of theology, you reject it. Even if that induction is plentiful, is incredible in its number, you will still reject it. I don't see the reason why you should reject it. You see, my question is, why do you not accept what I'm saying to be a strong argument if we would accept it with anything else? Why?
For me, I still, on this thing of the phone, it didn't come into existence.
I'm not talking about coming into existence.
Well, I think you are.
I'm just talking about contingency. There is a difference between contingency and causation. Yes.
I don't understand the difference.
Okay, let me explain. Cause
Yeah.
means when something brings something
Legs are going.
brings something else, brings rise to something else.
Right.
Contingency is dependency. That's another synonym for dependency. So contingency and dependency are the same thing, whereas cause is when you have something which brings rise to something else.